I want to get back to the entitlements because, again, I think that this is probably one of the most egregious things going on, where there really has yet to be anyone willing, and you mentioned Chris Christie in New Jersey, who a lot of people love to tout as sort of the next big thing, but even he, as bold as he's been talking, you know, sort of coming out after the teachers' unions and other sort of sacred cows that others have been afraid to touch before, even Chris Christie is not talking about the need to start reforming these entitlement programs in order to really make a difference in what's happening. Why is there no one willing to do it?
I think one part of it is Social Security and how much of a disaster it was for the last administration. You had George Bush make that kind of the flagship of his second term, and as a result it's become almost taboo to talk about it because people are afraid of the political consequences. But I think it's time to put politics aside. You know, as Governor Christie said, the day of reckoning is almost here, and it's really time to think about what are some really innovative and effective reforms that can be done to these entitlement programs.
Like what? I mean, because again, David makes a very good point. President Bush came out and made this, you know, the privatization or partial privatization of Social Security, really tried to make it one of the cornerstones of his second term, and it went absolutely nowhere.
Well, I think the problem with all of these programs is the math is so daunting that none of us can really understand it. But the basic thing that every American ought to understand is that we don't have the money to spend that we're spending right now. We have to, as a country, make cuts. There's no way to do it. You can go right back into your home, into your checkbook. You don't spend money that you don't have. We have to do the same thing as a country.
And if we go back to health care reform, there was some low-hanging fruit that really could have cut costs in health care generally, not just Medicare and Medicaid.
Like what?
Well, making health insurance available across state lines. That's something that would inject competition in the system and lower insurance premiums. I wrote a piece about health courts to adjudicate medical malpractice issues that would save a lot in defensive medicine. So I think that some of that low-hanging fruit that could have been taken in healthcare reform wasn't by the administration. Instead, they injected more costs.
What's the reason why the Obama administration doesn't like purchasing health insurance across state lines? What's the problem there?
I'm not sure.
Do you have any idea?
I think that it's more difficult to police, I think. At least that's the argument that they make. But the entire healthcare system in this country, no matter what bill we see, it's broken. It's not working for the doctors. They're not making enough money. They're worried about malpractice suits. Their insurance is through the roof. We have to wait in line anyway to get attention, even if you have a doctor, even if you have good insurance. The whole system is broken.
Tort reform, though, the president has now mentioned that he's willing to talk about tort reform.
Right.
I mean, that would have been nice.
That would have been nice last year.
I'm not sure exactly why all of a sudden, but he did mention that in his State of the Union address. You know, one of the other areas, because I talk to a lot of doctors, where we spend so much money is on end-of-life care, and yet you start talking about end-of-life care and counseling people about end-of-life decisions. And then that starts to be a political problem as well. We've heard about death panels, which you could argue don't really exist in the healthcare law, but people are afraid of that anyway. Right. But that too is an area where it just seems like, you know, put the politics aside, David, and let's talk about what really need to cut.
And I work at NYU Medical Center, and people I work with we were not happy with the health care bill, and it really felt, whether you're a Republican or a doctor, it really felt like your voice wasn't heard. And so this call to repeal it, it's extreme, but it is something to show that this was done without really the best interest of the American public in mind.
Meanwhile, it's not going to be repealed, and we're now learning that they're not even really going to be able to strip the funding because of a group of Republicans in the House Rules Committee who are sort of stepping in the way now. I'm not sure how many people are following this, but one of our producers, Chad Pergram, who covers Capitol Hill and writes frequently for the website, has a great piece that I would recommend you seek out, where he writes about sort of the strange bedfellows involved, well, obviously in politics in general, but when it comes to trying to defund the Obama health care law, and it's a group of Republicans on the House Rules Committee who are standing in the way of stripping the funding, saying that it's really against the rules. You can't do it. We don't like it, they're saying. We don't like the new health care law, but you got to go about it differently, and they're standing in the way of
that's what makes your average voter's head spin. How are we supposed to reconcile that? Because that's exactly what's happening. And we talked about this right from the beginning. To me, the notion of a complete repeal of the health bill was so preposterous, yet very debated. It was never, ever going to happen. There will be parts of that bill that will be taken, that will be stripped away from it, and probably other things that will be inserted. But from the get-go, that's all we were talking about, is a complete repeal. Will never, ever happen. And, you know, I think that whether you're a small business owner or whether you're just a person who doesn't have health insurance or you have lousy health insurance, you have to understand the bill. You should really actually read the bill. That would be a great idea.
Isn't that your website?
That is my website. So it was a subtle plug. Readtovote.org. But I'm serious. We debate this bill. It affects every single person that's watching right now, all of us on the panel, everybody. But we never read the bill. So basically what we're arguing about...
It's too long. I mean, who's got time to sit down?
It is too long, unless we're going to change that. Unless we're going to change the way bills are written in this country. The people that vote what we're supposed to do, where our tax dollars are going, are not even reading the laws that they're putting into practice. Something's wrong about that.